Joseph is sold for 20 shekels. Egyptian documents reveal that this is precisely the price you would expect.
A few hundred years later, we find that the price is up to 30 shekels. And yet, down into the first millennium, it's up to 50 shekels, and so on. So we see, you can actually plot on a chart and see the cost of slaves going up. Now, with the Joseph story, this is an important detail, because if the story is simply conjured up, made up, if it's just a novel from the end of Israelite and Judean history, you would expect that the author would not know what the price was 500, 600, 700 years before.
While Joseph is being hauled away to Egypt, his brothers smear his coat with goat's blood to fake his death. We're told that Joseph is sold as a slave to Potiphar, the chief of Pharaoh's army, a man in charge of soldiers, horses, chariots. He's rich and powerful with a large house and staff. No mention of Potiphar has ever been found in ancient documents. But the Brooklyn papyrus found near Luxor dates back to Joseph's time and proves that the use of Semitic servants was surprisingly common.
During the late Middle Kingdom, which is a period when Joseph may well have come to Egypt, a well-to-do household of a nobleman in Egypt had a good number of Semitic household servants, people who did work in the fields, people who did the weaving and so on. So a well-to-do estate would have household servants. We might even use the term slave to describe these people.
According to the story, Joseph was given an Egyptian name, another custom confirmed by the Brooklyn papyrus.
Their master may have had a hard time vocalizing their foreign name, and so we have the name X, who is called Y. Now, X being the Semitic name, who is called Y, his Egyptian name. In the Joseph story, we have Joseph, who is called Zaphenach Paneach.
The Bible says Joseph worked hard and did well, rising to take charge of Potiphar's household. But then his fate takes a dangerous turning, instigated by Potiphar's wife. She makes a pass at him. The incident may well be fictional, an attempt by the author of the story to paint Joseph as the innocent party. But according to Lloyd Llewellyn-Jones, the episode can't be ruled out altogether.
When it comes to women in antiquity, and certainly when compared to their Hebrew or Semite sisters, elite women in ancient Egypt have a remarkably autonomous life. They have a considerable amount of freedom. We know, for example, that they could divorce at will, that they had the right to their own property. We find this legal status to be really quite remarkable for a woman's lot in antiquity.
Joseph rejects her advances. Furious, she accuses him of trying to rape her. Joseph is thrown into jail. But just when his life could sink no further, it takes another dramatic twist. In jail, a former royal servant asks Joseph if he can interpret a strange dream about pressing 3 bunches of grapes into Pharaoh's cup. Joseph predicts the servant will be freed in 3 days. His interpretation proves true. The news reaches Pharaoh, who orders Joseph to be freed in order to have his own dreams interpreted. There is no way of checking whether Joseph was released from jail or even thrown into jail in the first place. Indeed, some biblical scholars suspect the whole episode is making a religious point.
If one looks at the way that the Joseph story operates, what one has is a series of deliverances of Joseph himself from captivity, and he is delivered from imprisonment. We're told quite explicitly in the narrative, because he has the favour of God.
But that's not to say that Joseph wasn't a gifted interpreter of dreams, and that somehow he came to the attention of Pharaoh. Artifacts found in ancient Egyptian tombs do in fact suggest that the Egyptians took dreams, specifically nightmares, seriously. Kasia Szpakowska is an Egyptologist who has studied the significance of sleep and dreams in ancient Egypt.
Well, one of these objects, this one, is the top of a headrest. Today we have fluffy pillows that we use to sleep on, but in Egypt, a hot climate with lots of little bugs that walk around on the ground, you want to raise your head up higher. And this is the portion that your head would actually be on. Some of them have on either the underside here that supports the head, or on the pillar itself, or on top of the base. They have figurines and carved-in figures of various types of creatures holding knives, spears, snakes even, that would be used to magically repel things like nightmares that might come and attack you during the night when you're at your most vulnerable.
Clearly, dreams were of interest in ancient Egyptian culture, but the biblical record is quite specific. A Hebrew interpreted the dreams of an Egyptian pharaoh in about the 17th century BC. And this presents a problem.
For the first 2,000 years of Egypt's history, we really don't have any evidence for dream interpretation. It's not until about the 1300 BC, roughly, that we have the first book of dreams and their possible interpretations. But we're not even sure if it was used.
However, there are clues that Joseph may have learned about interpreting dreams from his family. Joseph was from Canaan, modern-day Syria. All his ancestors came from Mesopotamia, just to the north. Dream interpretation was part of ancient Mesopotamian culture. It's found in the story of a leader called Gudea.
In at least about 2400 BC, we have stories of Gudea, which describe him having a dream and him needing to have this dream interpreted by a third party. And when it's described, it's not described as something unusual, as Gudea having to go to a foreigner or go to a foreign land, so it's considered as part of that culture.
The Bible says that Pharaoh asks Joseph to interpret a dream in which 7 fat cows come out of the Nile, followed by 7 thin cows. Joseph says the dream means 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine. In the Bible account, the prediction comes true. And on the strength of it, Joseph is made Prime Minister of Egypt. It almost sounds too convenient. A dream that accurately predicts a major crisis. But psychologists believe there's an authentic ring to parts of the story.
This has to be, far around your head goes. This one.
Mark Blagrove is testing the theory that dreams are more than just random images, or even an activity that processes memories. His research strongly suggests that people dream mostly what they are worried about.
Are there any people?
Student Katie Jones has volunteered to have her dreams analysed. Earlier, she revealed that her biggest worry is the stress of her new part-time job in a hardware store. These worries are hardly on the scale of those of a pharaoh, but if Mark Blagrove's theory is right, then even Katie's dreams should mirror her concerns, however trivial.
We could say that, you know, humans back then are going to have a similar relationship to their dreams as we have now.
And those are your brain waves just there, which are very awake brain waves.